everybody. So today we are the response to intervention team.
My name is Jewel Martin.
My name is Brandon Flores.
Abraham Hombres.
And Melida Vasquez.
So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so just a quick refresh. So the response to intervention is a research-based approach, and what it is that it's used to identify students who have learning disabilities or who need further services like special education. It's very important that we assist these students, and that's why this RTI is very important and very useful, because it reflects on the school as a whole. So being able to assist every single student, regardless of their disability, is very important overall. So the RTI team members are usually the administrator, the school counselor, general educator, the other cases. So usually our question is, who is responsible for deciding a student or to deciding the process and initiating it? And so in this case, it's kind of complicated because technically the teacher is the one who initiates, only because they are spending half the time with the student and then the other half is the parents. So perhaps maybe the parents might have a concern, or they notice something, or perhaps a teacher notices that a particular student is struggling. So they're the ones that technically initiate the process, parents and teachers. And then from there, generally the school district or the school already has these RTI standards that need to be met anyway. So the decision-making process will provide students with needed support, and they help with needed support that will clearly help them as much as possible. It will move students through the tiers of intervention. These tiers of intervention will identify further needs for these students, and then eventually lead to see if they need any special education services. Okay, so the RTI and the general teacher. When a teacher suspects that a student or students are having trouble, like I said, they begin to pinpoint the area. So that's when they start using the RTI method, and that's when the initiation begins by the general teacher. Okay, so here in this model, we show tier 1 with an 80%, that being that it's the entire general classroom that's being assessed. This will tell the teacher, how well the classroom is doing, who needs a little bit more work, and that's what tier 1 is. It's an intervention for all students. So tier 2 in this model shows you a 15%. It is students that are more at risk of failure, students that showed more struggle in different areas, more so than tier 1. And then in tier 3, it's a 5%, and that's more customized support. That's where it's smaller groups, it's more individualized interventions, instruction, only because it's it's literally where a person or a teacher can really identify already the student who's having struggles, and they actually are able to, because they're more one-on-one, they're able to decide what disability or what condition might be going on with the student. And then tier 4 would already be special education. That would already be where a specialist comes and assesses the student that is considered for special education, and I believe only they can assess the student. At this point, so in tier 1, like I said, involves all students in the classroom. General teachers and high qualified assistants are the ones that are doing the instruction, they're monitoring, They're trying to see the response of students regarding this tier. If, like I said, they assess them, and if the student shows no improvement, then they are moved to tier 2. So tier 2 is for small groups. These students usually are assessed a little bit more. The instruction is a little bit more intense. It can also be done, like I said, by a general teacher or a high qualified assistant. At this point, you don't need a specialist, but the instruction is more intensive. They're monitored more frequently, more direct, more one-on-one for tier 2. And if nothing in tier 2, then students are then moved to tier 3. So before going to tier 3, there is a team meeting, a multidisciplinary team meeting. And what that is the teacher gets together with the parents, like I said, the coordinator and those that I've mentioned before, and they create a plan, they get statistics together, they get the students' evaluation together, and they sit down and talk about what the possible condition can be, what is going to be needed for this student, what steps need to be taken, why they are going to tier 3. There has to be a reason why you're moving to tier 3. You can't just send a student there. You're going to base it off results of the student's performance. So tier 3. So tier 3 provides instruction that is, like I said, much more intense than the previous tiers. The monitoring is constant, not just frequent. It's a lot more constant. It's a lot more one-on-one. It is given by a special education professional that is qualified at this point, because at this point, if no progress is done, then the student unfortunately does need special education services. So that is what tier 3 is. That's why prior to the tier 3, there is a team coming together to discuss, like I said, the student's performance, and to give good reason behind it, because now they are going to a specialist that's going to evaluate them.
Okay, so how soon should the process be initiated? The RTI process should begin as soon as possible, as soon as the teacher notices the student falling behind, or they're struggling with their work, or any behavior problems or attendance issues. The general ed teacher should begin assessing the entire classroom and then find the areas where certain students are struggling or needing help. And steps or measures general education teacher should take to ensure intervention or assistance is provided. So with RTI, general education teachers are expected to assess individual student needs. So they're going to monitor the progress of the students, monitor their skills, and if no progress has been done, then the student should be referred to tier 2 for more intensive instruction.
Okay, so basically reiterating what has been previously said, however, seeing how IDEA, the reauthorization, fits in with the response to intervention. In 2004, the reauthorization of IDEA discontinued the use of the intellectual quotient, the IQ exam, achievement discrepancy formulas as the only tool for identifying students with learning disabilities. And the reason they did that is because it seemed to the minority groups were the ones who were being identified with learning disabilities, which was not a good balance because of the fact that it was geared towards a certain group passing the test. So with the addition of the RTI as a method of evaluation for specific learning disabilities, it caused researchers to advocate for the specific learning disabled students not to be compared to their peers as a reason for special education services, since learning disabilities were defined as neurological in origin neurobiological in origin and involved psychological processing deficits. Now, RTI does not identify processing deficits as a reason for students failing to learn. And the idea defines the specific learning disability as a significant discrepancy between achievement and cognitive ability in oral, reading, writing, listening, or math. So what is the idea's intent with RTI? It was to have, as has been said, research-based assessments and strategies gathered for further evaluation and placement of the student. Ensure not just one evaluating measurement or assessment tool is used, the use of technology to aid the student in cognitive, physical, developmental, and behavioral factors, rule out over-identification, and especially in minority groups, and identify learning disabled students. So what makes a student eligible? Well, this is where IDEA gave it to the local education agencies, being the states, the districts, etc. As of the early 2000s, some state and local education agencies required students to be at least 2 years behind grade level in order to receive the benefits of any form of special education. 1990s began research of RTI implementation and progress after Congress allowed the local education agencies to replace the ability achievement discrepancy method. The components are of the RTI implementation. There's 4 different ways to implement RTI. Problem solving, and that is based on curriculum-based measurements. Functional assessment, that's whenever the team comes together and they decide when or how the IEP is going to work and what to do to further evaluate if necessary or place the students in special education. That is the most critical part of the RTI because now you are identifying them as special education. And the standard protocols, focusing on evidence-based intervention in the tier levels and follow it strictly. Tier 1, universal for all students. Tier 2, 20 minutes per day up to 20 weeks in addition to Tier 1. Tier 3, 2 to 5% of students, smaller groups, more intense instruction and explicit 45 to 60-minute instruction. Now, it must be noted that Tier 3, as has been said, is not the special education placement. It just begins the evaluation for special education. And then there's hybrid to blend models because some schools actually have up to 8 tiers of evaluation before the child is placed. And there's also been research as to why the teachers are not meeting the needs, and it's the battle to implement as intended for the RTI. Most teachers are confused as to which teacher is supposed to deliver Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention or instruction. Some of them are not really wanting to take responsibility for that because they are not once the general education teacher is not exactly supported by the administration of the school, principal, etc. They don't have developed instructional strategies, and a lot of times in implementing anything like this, the principal has to be the leader in this kind of thing because they're actually instruction and it comes from above from them, and it just kind of falls down the ladder as to who does what and how. The lack of support given to teachers, aligning the coordination, the training, and the support from the team. Not dividing the class time for tier levels. The variety of interventions, instructional practices, and assessments, that kind of thing. And teachers are extremely limited in experience and resources on how to train for the intervention properly. Are a certain age or at a certain level in their career that they just don't want to change and do what is best for the student. They want to continue to do what they've always been doing because they're too close to retirement. And that goes in along with